Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
Indie Alaska is an innovative weekly web series capturing the diverse and colorful lifestyle of Alaskans. Real stories of everyday Alaskans at work and play. Supported in part by Alyeska Pipeline Service Company.
The National Weather Service.
Hello everyone, and thanks for joining us for Sunday's edition of Alaska Weather. On the satellite imagery, yesterday we were watching upper low pressure here over Bristol Bay, and that was driving cold air southward from out of the Arctic here, Russian Far East, sweeping it down south across the Pribilofs and then taking a turn to the southeast and driving it across the Alaska Peninsula and eastern Aleutians with this band right through there. Otherwise, over the Gulf of Alaska, we had a band of moisture lifting northward here on the western or the eastern side of this upper level system, where the winds were southerly to southeasterly and then to easterly, and that brought this band of rain into the southeast coast, rain and snow, especially down toward Homer yesterday during the morning hours, and up to the north, the cold air, variable clouds, and flurries here, St. Lawrence Island on up into the Chukchi Sea. And rolling this ahead, you can see this cold air pouring eastward into the southwest of Kodiak Island, while this front moved northward over the Panhandle. We had a lot of clouds and some areas of snow, rain along the coast, though, but some areas of snow did get up into the northwest, a little farther to the northwest. And then today, you'll see we still have the upper level low centered, at least to start, over Bristol Bay. But you can see it's moving now across the Alaska Peninsula. Cold air still coming southward from the Russian Far East and the Arctic as well, with pretty chilly temperatures today in the 10 to 20 degree range across the southwest interior. Clouds right up along the Alaska Range, and that sort of is a boundary between the colder air to the west and north and the milder conditions off to the east and southeast, due to that continued southeast wind flow. Another band of moisture lifting up to the North Gulf Coast today, breaking up as it moves inland. That brought some rain, or mostly rain still along the coast, changing to showers this afternoon. And then this thing breaking up as it lifts northward. Just some areas of scattered snow showers across the Copper River Basin, actually right up into the Tanana Valley, but just scattered snow showers or flurries up to the north here in this area. The heavy precipitation down along the coast, but amounts weren't all that heavy, just 0.08 of an inch in Valdez, for example, but a little more potent trough swung through the Panhandle today, and that brought wind gusts up to 60 miles an hour in Lynn Canal. Otherwise, a lot of rain and showers, winds 20 gusts 35 down to the south there, and you can see it breaking out a little bit here this afternoon over the southern Panhandle, but it looked like it will change over to showers and begin to diminish ahead of this next storm. We get some dry and a break right through here. Then this storm will be lifting northward and bringing back the gusty winds and rain tomorrow to the Panhandle. Otherwise, up along the Arctic coastal areas or through the Bering Strait, wind still gusting today up to 35 miles an hour. Through the Bering Strait down to St. Lawrence Island, pretty brisk for the Pribilofs as well. Rain and snow as this patch of moisture dropped down into the area there with winds 20 to 30 miles an hour, some gusts up to 35 miles an hour, as I mentioned. And then that continues on down along the Alaska Peninsula and eastern Aleutian areas there with rain and snow showers, temperatures in the mid to upper 30s here in that area. And then some return flow coming in, a little bit of snow at times, king salmon, but mostly here along the eastern slopes of the western Alaska Range, kind of a steady snow condition going on there, and then scatters out back to the west. For tonight, look for another trough to come north, but showers will be diminishing there over the southeast coast as time goes on. Most of the shower activity will be back to the west, coming up mostly west of Yakutat back over into Prince William Sound, where will be a mixture of rain or snow showers. And then that initial band here lifting northwestward and to the north, and it will continue to weaken, but there should be enough moisture left for some scattered snow showers along the Alaska Range right down into northeast Bristol Bay. And this surface low associated with the upper level low moving to just southwest of Kodiak Island or southwest of Sitkinak. So periods of rain and snow across the island there with the frontal system farther to the south. And this is the next storm here beginning to move northward during the night tonight. And so there's going to be a little bit of a break here over the southern southeast coast for partly cloudy skies and light winds. Not much change out here over the Bering Sea. Northerly winds, snow showers, clouds, areas of marginal or IFR along the Bering Sea side of the Alaska Peninsula, right down into the Aleutians. Improving back out to the west, there high pressure building out here over the far western Bering Sea and the western Aleutians. That's going to begin to come eastward here and allow some of this storminess out to the west to begin to break through a little bit over the next few days. It looks like by the middle of the week, Wednesday or Thursday, finally something will break through underneath and drive eastward along or just south of the Aleutians. But for tomorrow, we'll see this storm, gales in the forecast, possible storm force winds along the south coast tomorrow in a narrow band ahead of this front. Rain heavy at times spreading back into the Panhandle. It's going to be slow moving northward. The northern areas probably won't see any rain at all through tomorrow, with the rain and wind mostly down to the south, but at least small craft advisory wind should be all the way up in the north coast there. Otherwise, Prince William Sound, rain or snow showers at times, scattered isolated snow showers to the north there, and a band of moisture along and just off the coast. Part of those slide southwestward right into Kodiak Island, mainly on the east side. Fognak Island on down toward Kodiak there, but some still rain and snow showers and less wind, but you can see enough gradient here that it doesn't end completely. So you're still looking at 15 to 20, 25 miles an hour across the Alaska Peninsula, a few higher gusts, and looks like small craft advisories here from St. Matthew Island down across the Pribilofs, and another rain and snow shower day, north winds 10 to 20, gusts 25 for Unalaska. And Nikolsky, it should be dry up there over the northern Bering Sea, mostly clear, some variable clouds, but probably VFR for St. Lawrence Island. Be some areas of marginal stuff slipping through the Bering Strait. And this low up here over the northwest really not doing much except a lot of clear skies. VFR, kind of an optimistic forecast for the whole area up here, right down into the Tanana Valley. And then you can see that next pretty strong frontal system edging its way eastward here. It will begin to bring some wind into the far western Aleutians late tomorrow afternoon as this sharp ridge of high pressure continues to push eastward. And this low slips a little bit farther to the west as this comes up. We'll see for Tuesday that has moved up and weakened considerably. And this low now with the upper level system shifting into the west central Gulf of Alaska. And that should develop and drive another frontal system up the southeast coast for an increase in the wind and rain again. But nothing as strong as what the one coming up tomorrow will bring in. Otherwise, back to the west, pretty nice day Tuesday shaping up for all of interior Alaska. Just some variable clouds up in this area. Maybe a return of some flurries and fog on the eastern Arctic coast, but winds quite light. Winds quite light all across this area. There will be no advisories or warnings up there for winds in the marine areas. Same thing right down the coast. Light winds, dry conditions, areas of fog possible, variable clouds over the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta. And the offshore flow as this pulls up into the Gulf of Alaska should keep it dry, mostly clear. Kodiak Island right up across south central Alaska. Could be a few more clouds than what I'm showing here over the Copper River Basin, but nothing too extensive than what I've got drawn in there. And should be a high pressure kind of day here along the eastern Bering Sea from the Fox Islands, Alaska Peninsula. Looking really good there. Light winds, partly sunny skies or partly cloudy, right up into the Bering Strait. And then here's that system pushing eastward. A development there on the frontal boundary should definitely guarantee some rain for Adak and Atka. Winds not that strong at this point ahead of this front, probably 20 to 30 knots. And that's about it as that kind of stretches out, the main low shifting up to the north and northwest. And temperatures today, 40s for the southeast coast, 45 Skagway, Juneau, as well as Wrangell, Petersburg, and a 46 at Klawock, 48 there at Port Alexander, and 43 at Sitka. And one of the heavier rainfall amounts, 1.26 inches at Yakutat, where they had 40 degrees this afternoon. These are all 4 p.m. temperatures. Annette had 1700ths, and Juneau just a little over 1/4 of an inch. 41 at Cordova, 38 Kenai, 34 in Anchorage, and 40 at Homer. Same thing in Kodiak. Much chillier. Copper River Basin just 14 at Gulkana, 19 Northway, 11 degrees there at Nenana, but Fairbanks up to 22. Or that's actually the Denali Park visitor area there with 11 degrees. As I mentioned, 19 at Northway, 21 over at Delta, and single numbers up in the upper Yukon Valley from Fort Yukon 07 to Bettles in the Koyukuk with 8 degrees, 11 degrees there at Tanana. I'm sorry, 13 at Tanana, and 5 at Barter Island, 2 degrees at Barrow, and -1 this afternoon at Point Lay, 16 Shishmaref, and 11 at Kotzebue, 25 Nome, 28 over at Gamble. Again, still have those gusty north winds out in that area. Lower 20s along the southwest coast, a little higher, upper 20s at McCormick with 27. Just 17 in Bethel. McGrath about the same with 18. Down at King Salmon, 31 degrees. Mid to upper 30s for the Pribilof, 42 over at Shimia, and a 39 at Unalaska, Adak, and Cold Bay. For the lows tonight, dropping a fair ways below zero here, anywhere from 5 to 20 below, with the coldest temperatures up over the northeast. Single numbers for the Arctic coast, upper 20s, St. Lawrence Island, but dropping in across the Yukon Delta there, anywhere as low as 5 degrees, but lower 20s, Bristol Bay, 20s, lower 30s here south of the Alaska Range, or actually south central Alaska down to the coast. A little milder over the Panhandle, mostly in the 30s for the Pribilof, or the Aleutians. And for highs tomorrow, getting near or just a little below or a little above zero here in the northeast, back along the north slope in the Brooks Range. Otherwise, 20s there, Nome, Tin City, 30 degrees for St. Lawrence Island at, I believe that's forecast for Gamble, and mid to upper 30s here for the south central Alaska areas, Talkeetna down to Anchorage, Palmer, Wasilla, 40 degrees forecast high for Seward, and mid to upper 40s for the southeast coast, and upper 30s over the eastern Aleutians to mid 40s out in the west. Flying weather tomorrow, as I mentioned, really good VFR here all along the Arctic coast and north slope, right into the Norton Sound area there, the Seward Peninsula. Could be some marginal stuff right through the Bering Strait, slipping down to the north side of St. Lawrence Island, and then some moisture here, possible IFR working into western Prince William Sound and Montague Island, but the offshore flow ahead of that system coming up turns the winds more north and northeast, so it should be a VFR day here over the northern Panhandle over to Yakutat, but the IFR working its way across Dixon entrance into the southern Panhandle. Areas of IFR, IFR here continuing on the windward side of the Alaska Peninsula eastern Aleutians, and then just some variable marginal conditions out over the southeast Bering Sea, VFR, and then lower conditions out to the west, edging eastward, but pushing mainly off to the north, at least for tomorrow. And then for Passes Anatuvik, wide open, VFR for Addington as well. Lake Clark and Merrill, VFR, either entrance. And for Rainy, could be some marginal VFR at times on the western entrance. And for Windy, though, it'll be VFR, Isabel VFR, and Mentasta, same forecast for Tanita. And for Portage, IFR on the eastern approach, west side go for marginal, and for Chilcoot and White, VFR. Freezing levels here, that big storm coming up the coast tomorrow, pushing warmer air up 2,000 feet, works back to the north there to just about Skagway at the surface, right through this area. Again, these freezing levels late tonight, early tomorrow morning, and then the surface angles back up like that, and then that next south to north winds here ahead of the next strong front pushing eastward pulls warm air northward. Otherwise, the cold air in over western Alaska and southward. Icing threats a little bit here along the North Gulf Coast, Montague Island back down to Kamishak Bay, possibly catching probably working down to Fognak Island, and then some scattered light stuff possible out in this area with the heavier icing with that front as it lifts up into the southern panhandle from Dixon Entrance and Prince of Wales Island, Annette Island, and those areas. Nothing to the north, cuts off quite sharply here over the central panhandle. And upper level low was in Bristol Bay early today, now across the Alaska Peninsula, sliding to just south of Kodiak Island tomorrow afternoon. This low here associated with that storm coming up from the north, very strong jet southwest, 160 knots. Two branches meet in this area here, and a northwest jet there just south of the Adak and Atka areas. Upper high pressure keeps it nice, cool, and dry for the most part, or will keep it dry for the northern part of the state into the interior. And then for 9,000 feet, we've got 55 knot winds coming north here toward the southern southeast coast, and then a band of 25 to 30 knot winds along the North Gulf Coast, and 25 to 30 knot winds here from the Yukon Delta coast right back in across the north central interior, lighter across the Brooks Range, east 25 for the eastern Arctic coast. Northwest winds continue to blow here from the Pribilofs down across the eastern Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula. And then we'll watch that very sharp ridge out here to the west, keeps the winds northwest again at 3,000 feet here for the eastern Bering Sea to the eastern Aleutians. East-northeast winds strongest here along the North Gulf Coast, and then again even at 3,000 feet, 50 knot winds coming into Dixon Entrance and beginning to affect the southern panhandle. East 25 to 30 for the Arctic coast. Turbulence up there as well, kind of a narrow band though, and again through the Bering Strait, maybe there from Mamanik down across Nunivak Island, and mostly west of the Pribilofs. Those gusty northeast winds one more day anyway, here from Nikolsky all the way over to Chignac, and then along the North Gulf Coast, as I mentioned, then some heavier stuff coming up from the south. And after the break, I'll be back to look at the marine forecasts.
Thanks for joining us for another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Dave Snider, joined again by Eric Stevens from the GINA, or Geographic Information Network of Alaska at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. Thanks for joining us again, Eric.
Glad to be here.
Thanks. We are talking about satellites today, and what are satellites? And the easy way to talk about that would be to introduce our friend the globe here, which is a round spheroid type shape. We haven't been on a flat Earth as far as history is known for several hundred years now, and because of that we also know that we are orbiting around other objects in space, and that objects are orbiting around the Earth as well. We call all those things satellites in some form or fashion, right, Eric?
Right. Well, this leads to the discussion of Johannes Kepler's research 400 years ago. Did some of the early work and founded the 3 laws of planetary motion, which are important to planets and also to weather satellites.
Okay.
Kepler's first law talks about how the orbit of an object around another object is an ellipse, not necessarily a circle.
Kind of a flattened circle?
Yeah, depending on how flat
squished
it could be.
Okay.
For our purposes, we'll just say they're mostly circular.
Okay.
The second law is most important for us, though, and that is the closer an object is to the thing it's orbiting, the faster it goes. So in the solar system, the planet Mercury is the closest planet to the sun. It orbits the sun in 88 days. It moves at 100,000 kilometers an hour.
It is just
moving.
Okay.
Right. And further out from the Earth is Jupiter, and it moves at only 1/4 the speed of Mercury, and it has to go further, so it takes 12 of our years for Jupiter to make one lap. The further out you are, the slower you go.
Okay.
So we're talking about planets. Why? What does it have to do with weather satellites? Turns out Kepler's laws apply to planets orbiting the sun. They also apply to satellites orbiting the Earth.
Okay.
You know, our natural satellite is the moon. There's the famous Apollo 8 Earthrise shot.
Beautiful shot.
Oh, yeah. You could just talk about that forever. December 1968, the moon is about 250,000 miles away from the Earth.
Okay.
Takes a month to go around the Earth. It's that far out, it takes a full month to do an orbit. Another shot here of the International Space Station. Instead of being 250,000 miles out, the ISS is only 250 miles up. It's really close. And so it doesn't take a full month for the space station to go around the Earth. It only takes 90 minutes. It's so close, it just whips right around 90 minutes.
Okay.
So weather satellites, there are a number of weather satellites, and there are a number of orbits. The further out you have the satellite, the longer it takes to go around the Earth. And this is important because different satellites have different purposes. So we have a satellite here. This little salt shaker lid will serve as our satellite going around the Earth. Let's say you have a satellite that's 22,000 miles above the Earth. This is kind of a magical spot because at that distance, it takes a full day for the satellite to go around the Earth. Imagine if you put your satellite 22,000 miles up from the equator and had it go with the Earth as the Earth spun.
The same speed.
Right.
Okay.
The satellite goes around the Earth just as fast as the Earth itself is turning. In effect, the satellite will hover in one spot.
I see.
And it appears when you make a movie loop of picture after picture after picture, you can replay that and you get these movie loops. Geostationary satellites, these are called, because they're stationary in appearance. And they provide a constant frame of reference. We've got an example here. Another nice thing about these satellites, since they're that far out at 22,000 miles, you can see from pole to pole, which is nice. So they're pretty broad view and a constant frame of reference.
So those are the pictures. If you're watching a weather satellite loop on TV, your favorite weather show, that's the picture that you're going to see is one that's sitting over the same spot.
If you're seeing a movie loop play again and again, that came from geostationary satellites. That's the only way you can do that.
Yeah.
The bummer, though, for us in Alaska is we're up on the very top of the planet. And for geostationary satellites to work, they have to be over the equator. So for the geostationary bird to view Alaska, it's kind of like reading a book, but you're reading it edge on like that.
Right.
So there's another kind of orbit called the polar orbit, which is nice. We're near the pole.
Yeah.
And here's a satellite. Those polar orbiters are much closer to the Earth, getting down toward International Space Station elevation. And they're not in the equatorial plane. Rather, their orbital plane is inclined like this. And the Earth turns under that satellite as the satellite orbits. The nice thing about that is for Alaska, the satellite will go right over Alaska a few times a day. And so you get a much closer image. We've got a shot from the Sumi NPP satellite. Specifically, it's a true color image from the VIRS sensor. That's an acronym there. But it's a beautiful shot of Alaska, and you can see so much detail, the kind of detail because you're close in.
Very high resolution.
You couldn't get this kind of view from geostationary satellites. The advantage of these polar orbiters is nice close imagery. You can see a lot of detail. The disadvantage, though, is that the satellite flies by, and then you have to wait a while to get the next image. And if geostationary weaknesses are that you're reading the page like that, the polar orbiter, you're reading the page straight on, but it's so close, and then it zips by, and you have to wait for the satellite to come around the Earth again. So there's no one perfect solution. Different satellites for different orbits. Each has their strength, and amazingly, it all comes back to Johannes Kepler and his laws of planetary motion, the same laws that govern how the planets orbit the sun. They govern how the satellites orbit the Earth, and even our little pretend salt shaker right here.
Right, okay. Well, since the 1957 Sputnik, we've been putting man-made objects into orbit around the Earth and starting to get pictures back. Who knows what will happen in the next 50 to 100 years. Amazing
it's
stuff.
It's a growing science, and the future is bright.
Thank you so much for joining us again, Eric. And for more information on GINA and what the satellite systems do there and what Eric's been talking about today, you can go to the web address on your screen. For Alaska Weather Facts, I'm meteorologist Dave Snider.
Welcome back. Looking at the ice edge up here, the sea ice, you can see filled in here on the east side out to the central coast. Now the ice edge actually is where there is more than 0.1% coverage of sea ice. So this, even though it's showing solid, it's really not out through this area and even back up through here. And then the northwest coast gradually, so we saw a real cold air mass up here currently, and with high pressure expected to stay in over the area, this will just begin to expand as well as across Kotzebue Sound and the northern Seward Peninsula over the next few days. And for the marine forecast, gales coming in south to north tomorrow, definitely even over the southern inside waters with those stronger gusts working northward. Starting out lighter and then picking up to gales all the way up the coast by this time tomorrow afternoon. Northerlies pretty brisk through Lincoln Island Glacier Bay. And then that storm lifts northward late tomorrow afternoon, evening, and overnight Monday. And then for Tuesday, that replaced by kind of a southwest 20 to 25 knot wind, which becomes more southerly and then southeasterly as you head northward. And light winds for the most part, but swinging around to the south. Probably pretty gusty coming down to 10 knots. Probably looking at 25, 30 knot winds early in the day, late tomorrow night there for Lincoln Island Glacier Bay, and about 20 knots more or less for the southern central inside waters. North Gulf Coast, small craft advisories tomorrow. East 25, northeast 20, Prince William Sound. Same pattern here, Cook Inlet right down to Shelikof Strait, and easterlies 20 across the Barren Islands. They'll swing around to the northwest at 20 on Tuesday here, right back up into Kamishak Bay, and that arrow should be northwest at 20 for Kodiak here along the east side, lighter down to the south, north 15, Shelikof Strait. And for the Bristol Bay area, north at 15. Stronger winds here for the Alaska Peninsula, 30 knots, 25 knots southwest of Kodiak Island. Much lighter high pressure moving eastward there from the central Bering Sea and Aleutians. So pretty light winds, still from the northwest though, but quite light, northwest 20 southwest of Kodiak. Out in the Aleutians, northwest, 30 knots tomorrow. A few higher gusts diminishing back to 20 to 25, and even lighter right along the ridge axis there than south. Southerly gales late tomorrow afternoon coming in toward Chimney and Attu. That front weakens, pushes eastward here. Small craft advisories just in a narrow band ahead of the front. Light and variable winds here across the Fox Islands, southwest 25 for the far west. And the southwest coast, small craft advisories, 25 knot winds. Purple arrows indicating freezing spray. Northwest 30 for the Pribilofs. And then for Tuesday, lose a freezing spray, mainly up here St. Matthew Island, and more extensive though around St. Lawrence Island. But that's gone. Warmer winds, 25 knot winds over the northern Bering Sea, northeast to north 10 to 15 here along the coast, 20 knots late in the day for the Pribilofs. And for the eastern Arctic coast, winds east 15 to 30 knots. Brisk wind advisories here for the central and part of the east side. Right down freezing spray, 25 knots, northerlies, 20 knots out to the west. Have a great evening.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.